Welcome back to Hive Live. I am Sage Hayes, traveling around the country and about to travel around the world next week to present to you something called Hive Live. And Hive Live is an interview series with transformational healers, people who are practicing at the intersection between holistic health and holistic healing and social change. And we're exploring lots of different ways to how people are doing that. And we're connecting healers from around the country. We're sort of like building more of a cohesive network with this effort with the Hive directory. So part of that effort is I am just like driving around and calling like my favorite colleagues and body workers and healers and saying, hey, can we just sit down and do an interview? Because there's so much wisdom that these people and these practitioners are practicing, and they're learning so much from the people that they're working with that I feel like I sort of thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to be able to spread this information in a broader sense? So that's why we're here today. And I'm in Portland, back in my hometown. Woo-hoo! I mean, not my original hometown, but my recent hometown. Thank you. Woohoo!
Portland!
Portland! Hello! And I'm here with friend and colleague Laura Scher. Thanks for being on today.
My pleasure. I'm so excited.
So awesome. Laura is a fellow body worker, licensed massage therapist, has taught body work and polarity, and is a polarity therapist, and probably a lot of other things too.
Sure. Aren't we? Don't we all wear a bunch of hats?
Exactly. So before we get into like what you do with bodywork and healing, why don't we maybe you could just start and just give us a little snapshot of who you are in general. Like, did you grow up in Maine? Like, you know,
Sure.
Just give us a little snapshot of your life.
Sure. So I am a transplant to Maine. I've lived here since I was 9 or 10. My parents are both from Ohio, and I spent the early part of my life living there. My mom's oldest sister married a man who was a president in the University of Maine system.
Okay.
And we came up here to spend some time at their summer camp out in Norway, Maine. The summer between my 2nd and 3rd grade year. And
summer camps, by the way, for those folks who are not from New England and Maine, a summer camp is not a boys and girls camp. It is like a little cottage, right? So like a summer camp is like a little, usually there's been, traditionally an outhouse, maybe running water. They're getting a lot more sophisticated these days. But anyways, it's like completely irrelevant, but it's often confused.
An important point to clarify, yes. So we came to spend a couple of weeks at their camp.
Cool.
And wow, the quality of life difference. I don't recall it. I recall being just overtaken by the beauty of the state that we live in. But to my parents, it was apparent, like, wow, this could be a big shift. So my parents found jobs up here, and we packed up and moved in the middle of my 3rd grade year or so. And a very, very much aside, but like 2 weeks after we moved here, we had the first big snowstorm that I ever saw. Like, snowfall in Ohio, like an inch, and the state shuts down. And we had 2 feet, like 2 weeks after we moved here. And I was like, oh my God, it was amazing. So have lived in Maine since then pretty much. Went to University of Maine at Farmington. Majored in a bunch of different things.
Did you think you were going to be a body worker back then?
Oh God, no.
No.
Not that. Never crossed my horizons, despite the fact that my mom is a physical therapist and has always been a physical therapist. I was very, what's the right word here? I didn't let myself be interested in science. I guess probably.
That's so
right. And
interesting.
so there's just not something that was crossing my mind. So when I went to school in Farmington, my intention was to be a teacher, right? So here we could trace that back. I've always been interested in engaging with groups and exchanging information. But I changed majors a bunch of times while I was at Farmington, and finally left with an interdisciplinary major in philosophy and religion.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was awesome and super fascinating. And the intent was to go to graduate school and teach. Anybody who's looked into graduate school for philosophy and religion knows it's super competitive and programs are super tiny. So that didn't happen for me. And there was this time when my mid to late 20s of like, what the heck am I going to do? So I did everything. I baked bread and I was a landscape gardener and learned how to make jewelry and found deep satisfaction in working with my hands.
Yeah, that's like a very strong thread.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and a lot of the folks that I've talked to have really talked about their hands and sort of that they've had, it sort of energy came through and it became apparent because of something that happened with their hands that sort of brought them to body work, or it was one of the things.
Yeah, absolutely. It was something that once I had this taste of like, there was a measure to each of these jobs that I was doing of completion at the end of each shift or each day. Like, here is this very physical thing that I've either created on my own or I've been a part of a creative process and putting together, and I've made this.
Right, bread, jewelry.
Yeah, gardening. Right? So for different reasons, I moved away from that and got into the world of retail. And then as a part of kind of the admin team on a retail team, got into human resources, which I also really loved. I loved the aspects of getting to know what was going on with people, what was going on in their home situations, what was going on in their work situations, helping them to fine-tune kind of how it was that they could participate in their work situation, most particularly while creating, as close as we could, a situation that worked best for them and their team and their home and problem solving. I loved that. I loved that. I moved into doing HR at a law firm, which was kind of more of that same problem solving. That was an awesome experience, a super like professional experience. It felt very much like, wow, I've taken this huge step up in this professional world, and felt some pressure to kind of live up to that. For a bunch of different reasons, I did that very happily for a couple of years and started to think about there's this piece missing to this work. I missed that sense of completion. I missed that sense of creation. And I was on a massage table.
Getting a massage,
thinking to myself, what can I do?
Oh my God, that's amazing.
That brings together this problem solving, involved with people aspect, and this hands-on, and literally sat up on the table. Did you go to school somewhere close by? And the guy, God bless him, I think I probably gave him a heart attack, or certainly shocked the crap out of him. And
right, because you like shot up and you were like,
oh my God,
like holding your sheet.
Yeah, tranquil music, low light, like literally out of nowhere. Had this eureka moment. And he said to me, yes, I went to Spa Tech in Westbrook. And I said, thank you. And I laid back down on the table and got out to my car and called. And 5 weeks later, I was in school.
Wow. That's amazing.
It was amazing.
Let me just touch in about like, what had initially brought you to get a massage? Because a lot of people, even massages a little bit, it's sort of obvious, but yet not so obvious. So, like, had you been getting body work?
I had received body work upon occasion. At that time, I was a member at Massage Envy, and so was going for a monthly appointment. I was doing a desk job, so you get some,
aches and pains.
Yeah, absolutely. Just some lack of mobility, right? When you're sitting a lot. So I was having some low back pain and high amounts of stress working where I was. So I was putting it together that it was critical for me to have moments of quiet and to have moments of relaxation and to be tending to my body, because there was also this whole aspect of being a bread baker, being a landscape gardener, where there's this physical aspect to that. You're standing, you're creating, you're moving, you're lifting, you're hauling, and that, unless there was like employee party going on as an HR person is not a big part of what's happening for you on the daily.
Right.
So I had put these pieces together that it was critical for me to provide some space for myself, some quiet, some rest, some sacred space.
Sacred
right?
space.
Yeah, but also like, oh my gosh, like the physical contact and how do I tend to this body? And then all of this kind of came together in this crazy vortex of a eureka moment.
5 weeks later, boom.
5 weeks later. I went home after I had gone to Spa Tech to meet with Amy Woodson, who was the admissions counselor at the time. I went home and I said to my partner, who I had said nothing to about any of this at the time because I wanted to have all the information, right? I went home and was like, so I don't know how you'd feel about this, but I'm thinking about going to massage school. God bless T-Sweat. God bless you, T-Sweat.
Holla, T-Sweat.
First reaction, completely justifiable. Like, where the hell is this coming from, right? And I was like, I don't know. It's just coming together for me that this is something that I really want to do. And the next words out of T-Sweat's mouth were, let's make it happen.
Nice.
Whatever you need to do. Awesome support from the beginning.
So it was like, where did this come from? And then like, I see that this is happening.
Yep, absolutely.
So like, let's make it happen.
Yep.
Beautiful.
It was awesome. So, this was probably like first week of December. I'm like, hey, so I think I might start school in like 5 weeks, 6 weeks.
And there you were. So how long now have you been practicing?
So when I started my training, the first block of my training was my polarity therapy.
Oh, cool.
So as soon as I completed that, I started practicing polarity therapy. So that was the first 3 months of my schooling.
And when was that?
That was January through March of 2012. So I've been practicing polarity since then.
We're going to talk about that in a couple minutes. Polarity,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yep. And then I graduated in December of 2012, and I've been a licensed massage therapist practicing since then.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And recently you moved into your own space.
I did.
I've had an opportunity to practice in this space, thanks to Laura. So it's a beautiful space. It's so exciting when you get to go out on your own after you've been affiliated with another person's business. It's a real big leap for all sorts of healing practitioners, and it takes a lot of courage, a lot of grit, and a lot of faith.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It's a big stirring up of the courage that it takes. There's when I had gone from doing HR to doing body work, I worked for 2 women, so let me just shout out to Mary Ann Butts and Colleen O'Connor, who I worked for many years very happily. And it's a big step then. So like step away from here, I've got this full-time job and reliable benefits and reliable salary. And so I'm partnered. So it's not just me and my life. It's my partner and my partner's life. That's all kind of going through this change and this shift. So we did that not just once, but twice, right? So when I started to think about going out on my own, there were lots of reasons that it kind of came up and that this might be the right time to do this. I was very worried about am I really going to be pressing the restart button here? But it was the right time, and I opened up in my location on Revere Street in November of 2015, and I've been here very successfully ever since.
Full practice.
Pretty much a full practice.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
I just want to pause for one more second here. If you could give one piece of advice to the person who's just starting out as a healing practitioner, in whatever form they're doing it, maybe they're working full time, they're waitressing, or they're whatever, and that they're sort of at that cusp of either being like, I want to go study this, or I've studied it, and then what the hell, like this is such a big mountain to climb. I don't really do you have just one piece of advice that comes up, because it's such a particular.
Yeah, it is. I have 2 pieces of advice. Number 1, keep a part-time job. Give yourself some kind of reliable income, but not just the income, but the structure. One of the things for me, there, when you work for yourself, you're working for yourself. It was the first time that I had not had some form of structure that a job had provided me. Like, well, I got to be there by 9 or whenever. I'm working until such and such a time, so that means I'm up at this point. I'm doing this in between. Da, 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 da. When you're working for yourself and there's no part-time thing or full-time thing that is applying some structure to your life, for me, I'm not great at applying my own structure. That was a big learning curve for me. So having a part-time job was very, very helpful.
It's a great piece of advice.
The second is just be patient with it. It takes time. You're starting a business, right? And anytime you go out and you talk with Small Business Administration or the Chamber of Commerce or whoever you might talk to, they're going to tell you when you start a business, it takes 3 years. It takes 3 years. Be patient. Be patient. You've got this. You can do this. Just be patient. Keep putting it out there. I'll tell you from experience, do the things that make you afraid. When Sage first sent me an invite about this, I had a super visceral, nervous reaction, and so I knew I had to do this.
There it is. Yeah.
Super important. Keep challenging yourself. Stay patient. Give yourself some structure of some kind.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing all that. I think there's a lot of people in that situation, and I don't think we're talking about that enough, so I really appreciate that.
No problem. Happy to do it.
Awesome. Great. So let's get into a little bit of, about your work. Massage and polarity were something, obviously, they're one thing when you're studying it, and then you practice for 5, 6, 10, 20 years, and they become something else. So if you were to say, like, just off the cuff, in the essence, what is the body work that you offer now, like the essence of it? Like, what is your intention with your clients?
The number one thing that I want to be able to offer my clients is a place where they can be themselves, where they can deeply honor who that person is, where they can be seen and honored for that person that they are, and where they can truly give their body and their mind, their psyche, their energetic system a place to just stop and come to stillness. It is so crucial, and it is, I think, a thing that's really difficult to find in the world that we live in. We're all, and I know we'll hit on this later, but especially these days, there's this franticness to our lives, and it's crucial, and that's important, right? Yes, there's lots to do in your life, and hopefully it's full of wonderful things that make you super happy, and the needs of your family and your work and your friends and all of these things are a two-way street, and they fulfill you deeply. But there's also a time and a space that I think used to be ritualized for us, 100 years ago, even, in ways that are no longer existent for some of us. It's really important to take a moment and be still and be with yourself and sound your own depths of what is this need, this body, what does this mind need right now, and how do I meet those needs?
That's so beautiful, and it sounds like in your offering, like, part of what you do is you, with your hands and with your intention and with your heart, you help hold that space for somebody to slow down.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for somebody's body to become closer to stillness and maybe some reset.
Yeah. Absolutely, right? I think that we have sometimes not enough awareness of how it is that some things can affect us really deeply, right? And I think what those things are differ for us from person to person. But things kind of hit us and we kind of move through because there's, I got to feed myself, I got to get to the grocery store, I got to get to work, I got kids' needs and spouses and dogs, what other beings in your life have needs to be met, including yourself. We kind of move through things, but we kind of feel like we're walking through them, like it's a curtain that we can part and just walk away from it. But certain things hit us deeply, excuse me, and attach to us. in ways, sometimes because we need to think about them and it takes us time to process through them, and sometimes we hang on to these things in ways that we're unconscious of, that nonetheless will inform the way that we act and react out in the world, until all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, you have a moment to kind of look at, like, when did this happen? That all of a sudden I'm irritable in the morning. What the heck is going on? Why is that? That is not me. What is happening here?
And you're lucky if you notice that.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Often, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? So being able to take some time to lay down on a table, take some time to have some reflective talk and listen with a practitioner of many wonderful kinds out there in the world. Taking that moment to set aside the time to plumb the depths of what is happening there. Super critical.
I love that. And there's lots of different ways you can do that, even if you can't go see a massage therapist because it's financially unavailable to you. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I want to, you sort of said plumb the depths. And I think one thing that I'd love just to talk about now is, now that you've practiced for a whole bunch of years and you've really worked with so many different bodies at this point, and also students, because you taught body work for a couple of years. Give us an example or a couple of examples of what's going on in people's bodies? You know, like, massage, I think, has been, because of sort of the westernized perspective, it kind of got thrown in this physical silo. But there's, like you had said, there's so much that the body's holding. And, like, can you just, for people who don't really, maybe haven't thought about massage and kind of all the ways a body can hold things, like, what are some of the things that you can feel or work with people on, like, literally through your hands and your intention?
Absolutely. One of my favorite things is when I have a handful of clients even who are especially good at this, but it always strikes me the first time that it happens for a client. You're working, let's say I'm working on their feet, and all of a sudden they say, "Oh, I don't know what just happened there, but I'm feeling that in my shoulder. Why would that be?" I love that. I love that. I love that moment of physical awareness. Like, oh my God, this body.
Right.
This body. And why is it that you're working here and I'm feeling things here? What's that all about?
Yeah.
I love that.
What is that all about?
Well, right? Sometimes, oh my gosh, I'm going to try really hard not to nerd out here.
Good.
I love reflexology.
Oh, cool.
Right? So there's different areas of our body that are connected, right? Sometimes they're literally connected through our muscles and our tendons, our bones and our ligaments, our connective tissue, our nervous system. But sometimes there's just kind of there's an energetic relationship between areas of the body. And so you can absolutely be working on the feet and feel things in multiple places throughout your body. You can be, those kinds of things absolutely always happen. But I love it when those clients have that moment of connection between the foot and the shoulder, or wherever it is happening for them the first time. Or where I from time to time will ask my clients to kind of take a moment, take a nice deep breath in, take a nice deep breath out, and feel in their body where is the stretch happening. And there are certainly clients who are like, "What are you talking about? I feel it in my rib cage," as I should. Of course you should, right? But sometimes, depending on what's going on with your body and what kind of a position you're in, where it is that your body is holding tension, you can take deep breaths and you can feel it at your sacrum. You can feel it in your neck muscles. You can have that sense of, like, kind of inner organ awareness, even of, like, wow, all of this. There's no separation between the body parts. There's no separation between your mind and your body. There's no separation between your energetic system and your body and your mind. These are all a whole. Yeah,
which we don't grow up with that necessarily, that teaching or that understanding. So part of what body work can be is supporting people in the reconnection to that deep really kind of inherent knowing we all have that everything's whole and obviously everything's connected, but that really being able to experience it is a whole nother thing.
Absolutely.
And body work can really hold space for that sort of, all those reconnections to start to happen.
Yes.
And if all those reconnections start to happen, chances are you may feel more whole.
Yeah.
Right? More
Absolutely.
connected inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're often trying to negotiate, trying to organize things outside of us to sort of, calm down or whatever, but we don't want to miss the inside.
Definitely not. Definitely not, right? And people come to the table from all kinds of different places in their lives. I work with folks who come because they have injury that they're working their way through recovery for. I work with folks who have experienced trauma. I work with folks who have a desperate need for relaxation. I work with folks who come just for polarity and are working on clearing their energetic systems. And it's beautiful to see all of these pieces kind of mesh together. It's really an amazing thing to be able to see them get a sense of like, all right, hey, I've got this shoulder injury, okay, so we're going to work the shoulder, but we're going to work the neck and the chest and the shoulder blade, and why are you working in my armpit, and what's the rib cage got to do with it, and why the pelvis, and talking about all of that with them, or having someone who comes in with chronic back pain, let's say, and talking with them about, okay, what are you doing? How are you stretching? How do you sleep? Just what's happening in your life? What can be kind of setting this up? And then is there anything that's underneath that? Are you holding tension there from fear or from trauma? Or are there other layers to be unwound here? Potentially. And there's not for everyone.
Right.
But to be able to gain some awareness of like, wow, okay, this low back stuff that's been going on for me for years, despite the fact that I'm exercising and stretching and da-da-da-da-da-da, there's other layers sometimes.
Yeah, like a lot of times, I mean, as a body worker, a lot of times back pain, people are, oh, physical, but it's actually often a lack of support.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, body workers, I think we get to explore these sort of more psychological questions, but very much in an embodied way.
Yes.
Right? Oh, you're having some pain, or up here. It's like, okay, so let's just bring some presence to that area and see what happens.
Right. Yes. Absolutely. Right. Just having another's hands, just even touching a portion of your body is going to increase your own awareness of that area and what's going on there. In a beautiful, beautiful way.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Let's just touch, before we want to get into polarity, but let's just touch a little bit more on the power of touch. Because it's almost like we can talk about all this content, but there's something that bodywork does bring that nothing really, you can't really do in any other, I don't know, it's not happening a lot otherwise, I guess I should say. And that is just the simple power of attuned, of present touch, of consensual touch in a therapeutic way. Yeah. And what that potentially can offer people, And I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, but I love talking about that.
I always want to say something about that.
Great.
There's a huge power, I think, to people to being seen, to like really being seen, and to really be heard. And going hand in hand with that is really being touched. You said consensually and therapeutically, like just we're a quick world, right? It's a quick paced place that we live in, and so much of our conversation happens over email and over text, and so much of our talking, though I will say I love FaceTime, right? Being able to see someone that you're talking to on the phone, lots of phone conversations, right? Our families and our loved ones are spread across the state or the country or the world. And we don't always get to touch them and be touched and be seen and be heard and be held really with love and affection and presence. There's a huge thing to say there, but
yeah, and I'll just add that, sort of, learning about developmental needs, a lot of folks grew up with either a neglect of touch or an abuse of touch. And so as a body worker, I had a lot to learn about bodies that were coming in from either or both vantage points, you know, and I think as body workers, you know, being able to find the relationship with people right where they are, and the relationship to touch that's actually going to feel right. And maybe that's not even touching for quite a while. It's just navigating space, and is it okay to, and you know, what can you even feel your body? You know, so there's a lot of that we do.
Absolutely.
Which is really kind of exciting, because if you've never been able to, if it's only been neglect or abuse, there's just so much more that's possible, but it takes time, right? And it takes safety. And it takes a real, you know, conscious body worker to, and lots of other modalities too, but I think touch is such a under talked about thing.
I agree, absolutely, and deeply healing, right? In the right context.
In the right context,
absolutely. And that negotiation, for folks who are coming to body work of any kind or therapeutic touch of any kind, is huge to understand. One of the pieces of information that I share with each of my clients that I'm working with for the first time is to just kind of state explicitly some of the things that are kind of hopefully understood about body work, which is your session's always under your control. You know, there's anywhere that I'm working, any way that I'm working that doesn't feel right to you, please let me know. This is your session. It's all about you. It's in your control at all times. I want to make you feel comfortable. I want to make you feel safe. And it's never going to kind of throw me off if we need to switch it up. So keep it in a place where you're able to unwind, because that is the point of the session. You are most able to access your ability to heal yourself in multiple ways when you're able to be at ease. And I want to support you in finding where it is that exactly is that point for you and your body at this time.
That's beautiful. And just to add to that, as a body worker, what I learned to do after having learned that so many people are coming in with so much touch trauma is to, you know, I totally like say, hey, you're in control, you're in charge, this is your session, like, you know, say what's comfortable, what's not comfortable. And then we actually go through practice. And I actually have them say no. Like, we practice sort of having them say no and yes. So, because oftentimes with trauma, your no gets taken away. And so, like, it's almost like you may be feeling uncomfortable or like something's too hard, but there's still that, like, you know, sort of deep, sort of the voice may be contracted, connected to the pain. And so part of I think part of the training that we want to keep doing with each other is helping our clients sort of open up their yes and their no's.
I love that.
And practice in a way where it's not high stakes, where where they're not super triggered. You know, I mean, it's going to trigger them to even have to say no sometimes. So it's like just being able to be sort of playful about it, and just so that you can kind of open that circuit can be really powerful. So I'm really glad you talked about that, and happy to add that piece.
I'm glad you expanded on it. Awesome. I love that.
Totally. All right. Thanks. I feel like that was really, there's just so much we can talk about with touch. Before we get to polarity, one more question about, like, so this political moment, this time, I mean, I was driving here just 20 minutes ago, and I drove by the synagogue, actually, just down the street, that had a bomb threat last week. There's a preschool at the synagogue, and I could just feel the energy around the place. Like, I just drove by, and I was just so deeply sad, and thought about what it would be like for the children and the families and the community of the synagogue to be a week or two out from a bomb threat right now. And I bring that up because it was just a very live example of driving here, and we're talking about bodies, and we're talking about healing and contraction, and, you know, I just, you know, want to ask you in this moment, like, what are you seeing in people's bodies? Like, how are you, how you know, what are some of the things what's one thing we could think about in this moment?
Wow, I have so much to say. I'll start off by saying I think that regardless of who you are, regardless of where it is that you are, and find yourself on the political spectrum, regardless of where it is that I find my clients and where it is that they are on the political spectrum, the thing that has come to me over like the last 6 months, even though more acutely in the last couple of weeks, is the deep, deep need for healing. The deep, deep, bottomless almost need for love that is on this planet right now. Excuse me.
Yeah, you take your time.
I had the honor of working with a handful of folks on Inauguration Day. Folks who had come and scheduled specifically to kind of remove themselves from just the day, right? The 24-hour news feed, the breakdown of everything that was happening and who was there and who wasn't there and what does it mean. And they had taken the time and had made the time in their lives to come in and be here on that day, which was amazing. I had 4 people scheduled that day, and so here's a real piece of what it's like to do this work, right? I had 4 people scheduled that day, and at the end of the 3rd session, I had to be done. It was a big day, and it's a big time, and I have my own political views, which I frequently am very happy to discuss, but I think it's, and not to dismiss where anyone is or what anyone is feeling, because there's so much going on that absolutely needs to be addressed. But I just feel this deep need for healing and a deep need for unity, and that if there's anything that I could ask everybody on the planet to spend a minute thinking about, meditating about, focusing on, it's that the things that we focus on that divide us are not the majority of the thing. When you come down to it, we're all human beings. We're all the same species. And we need to honor that. That there is this time and this space where we have been feeling divided, we have been divided, we've been driven to focus on sometimes the things that separate us from one another, and that is just not where it's at. We're in a time and a place where I hope what is occurring is that we're coming to a crisis moment where we'll have to kind of really turn around and look at each other and say, is this what we want to be doing? Is this how we want to be living? Is this, you're my neighbor, whether you're here in Australia or in California, you're part of my community and I love you dearly. I have, neighbors that are dear friends. I have neighbors that I have contentious relationships with, but that's not really the point, right? They're a human being. We all have needs. We want to have our needs met, and let's freaking work together to make that happen, because that's where it's at, right? Let's find those members of our community, and hopefully that number grows and grows and grows, that we can, regardless of where it is that they are, where it is they're from, what religion they practice, what color their skin is, what their gender identity is, whatever, that you can look at them and say, that's a human being, and they are worthy of my love and my respect, and being a member of my community just because they're alive. That's what I gotta say about that.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's a deep time, and there's a lot of separation, and it's complicated, and not about how we navigate right now.
Yes.
In a body that has a nervous system that creates a lot of fear, perceived or real, and there's a lot to hold right now. And I appreciate the calling to humanity, and and appreciate the work that you're doing and holding here.
I'm happy to do it.
To be able to support people to show up in that way, having those pauses and doing their restorative work. Anything else you want to say about that?
Just focus on love. Focus on love. Focus on love. Know that I deeply believe that this is a crisis moment for a purpose. Let's honor it and let's call it a crisis moment. I know that there are people who, and myself included, are deeply afraid. It's a rough time, and I don't want to dismiss that. But again, I at this time am choosing to focus on how do I include as many as possible? How do I see everyone where they are, but not with a label of what they believe or what they think, and just accept them and see them and see if we can just make the world a happier place, as cliche as that might be.
Yeah, not an easy thing to do when you're afraid.
Oh.
Yeah,
No.
The fear is real.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's it. I just appreciate the way you're digging into, like, be with your community and our community in that way.
I am so grateful for every member of my community, more so now than ever. So I love you all.
That's so super sweet. Oh, I miss you. I know, it's so great to be together.
It is.
We got a little bit more time. I do want to, it's sort of a shifting of gears.
Sure.
But just to touch on polarity therapy, like,
Yeah.
what is polarity? So maybe just to shift gears, y'all. We're just going to have Laura just talk a little bit about what polarity therapy is and what it can be helpful for.
Oh my gosh, what can it be helpful for?
All right. Polarity.
Polarity therapy is an energetically based body work. So body touch, you're on a table, you're fully clothed, unless you're choosing to incorporate some aspects of massage into your session, but not every polarity practitioner does that. Some folks practice strictly polarity therapy. Wow, it's this really unique amalgamation almost of a bunch of different holistic health concepts. So some concepts of reflexology and rolling that into body work, understanding that there's connections between, like we were talking about earlier, the feet and the rest of the body, or the hands, or different zones of the body. Concepts of the chakras and an energetic system. So this concept that the energy that is out in the universe and the energy that is within our body is on this constant exchange. Like we are breathing in and we are breathing out. We're breathing in oxygen, we're breathing out carbon dioxide, but there's this energetic movement between us and the universe as well that informs both parties, right? So through our chakras and other ways that we are accessing what's happening out there in the world and then the universe, we receive energy, and we are providing our energy out into the world in this beautiful inspiration, kind of expiration sense. So involves therapeutic touch, involves energetic awareness. It can involve some polarity yoga, which is a particular kind of yoga that's super awesome. It can involve some polarity nutrition concepts. Definitely involves therapeutic listening and talking. So what's going on with you? You know, where are you at in the world right now? What's happening in your mind? What's happening in your heart? What's happening in your body? What's going on in your world? What's going on in your relationships? Are there common threads?
I gotta answer. I gotta come back for a session just to answer all those questions. I'm like, I'm on my appointment.
I love this work.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this work.
And what's one way it helps shift something for somebody?
Right. So you can begin to look at things through a slightly different lens, right? So let's say you came in because you've got some stuff going on in your relationship, let's say. with whoever, your parents, your siblings, your friends, your significant other, whatever the case may be. You've got some stuff going on. Okay, so what's happening there? And we talk about some details. And now let's talk about what's going on in your body. Is there tension somewhere? Is there stiffness? Is there soreness? How is your sleep? How is your appetite? How is your elimination? How is your thirst? What's going on in there? Is your skin dry? Are you losing hair? Right? Let's talk about these things, and then let's talk about how it is that they are affecting each other. Right? The number one concept at play behind polarity therapy is that what is happening in our minds is setting the tone for our body. Right? So by talking about what's happening up here and beginning to unwind some of these thought patterns that aren't serving us physically, psychically, emotionally, and starting to shift some of those thought patterns, and by kind of what's the word I want to use here? I want to say patterning these new thought patterns into the body, we can create not just change in our thought patterns, but change in our body, and know that these things are informing each other, right? So we'll talk at the beginning of a session, what's going on, what are you bringing to the table today, or what do you know about polarity therapy? If that's nothing, let's talk about that, and then let's talk about what's going on with you. And then let's kind of set a tone for the session, and then let's bring this mental work that we've kind of begun at the beginning of the session right down into the physical of your body. How do we talk about what we want to shift up here and remind your body of those things?
To really connect up the shift of, say, like, I came in and I'm feeling just really unworthy.
Yeah.
And, like, that's just, like, a thought I have all day, that I'm so unworthy of love, or I'm unworthy of
success, affection, right?
Enter whatever, right? Plug in whatever. And that maybe my body has kind of collapsed because of that in certain ways. And so part of what polarity does is it kind of makes contact and sort of holds space to start to shift some of the beliefs, and then start to land them in the body.
Yes.
Right. And you do that through intention and awareness and helping the client sort of cultivate awareness, and
absolutely
through literal energetic contact.
Yes, literal energetic contact, right? So one of the things that I talk about with clients is, we'll trace an energetic pathway through your body, or we'll make mindful contact between different areas of your body. But it's this idea of, planting those seeds of how do we shift what's happening here. In all of these planes. And I do that in multiple ways, with therapeutic touch, the talk before and after a session, playing with some crystals during a session, or essential oils during a session, just trying to, how do we use as many senses as possible? How do we engage as many of these, however many senses we want to talk about, that live in our physical body and can kind of cross those separate streams, right, to help deeply implant what we're talking about, and the shifts that each individual client wants to see occur in their life.
And you find that it works.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's amazing to see. It's a process, right? It's like, if you have a problem and you go for massage, sometimes it gets fixed in one blow. Sometimes it takes a couple of visits, right?
Sometimes it gets a little worse before it gets better.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right?
Because you're letting it surface maybe in a more full way.
Yes. Yeah. Right. You're digging deep, right? You're plumbing the depths of what really is going on, and how far back does this stretch potentially, and getting into cellular memory stuff of these deeply held and implanted beliefs that sometimes we aren't even really conscious of when they begin and why they have as much strength as they do. And when we get to a point in our lives where we can empower ourselves to re-examine some of what's going on and take a look at some of those beliefs and say, you don't belong here anymore. How do we switch this up, right? Because unfortunately it's not always as easy as looking at something and acknowledging it and asking it to go.
Right.
It's old deep stuff sometimes.
Yeah. It's sort of, it got implanted there for a reason, and it takes some real conscious
Absolutely,
effort.
right?
Yeah.
Lots of those things are survival techniques.
That's right.
Right? There for a reason, have served us for a good period of time in the way that we really needed them to. And sometimes we've grown beyond them, or sometimes they've morphed into things that are not healthy for us any longer.
Yeah, and sometimes those are much, we talked about this yesterday with Kay DeWitt, and sometimes those are actually not even our memories. They're our great-grandmother's memory.
Yes.
And that those can be passed down through a lineage. And
Absolutely.
so those are workable.
Absolutely.
Which is the exciting news.
Yes, right? It's fixable. It's workable. Fixable. Hate that word.
Yeah.
But like,
Totally.
It's shiftable.
Yeah, transformable.
It's changeable.
I don't think that's a word either, but
we just made it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So you're getting in as deep as you can, because the deeper we get in, whether it's into the cellular memory, the DNA, I don't know, whatever the depth is, right? It doesn't really matter on some level, but obviously the idea is like the deeper that we can bring love, the deeper that we can bring presence, the deeper that we can offer a new choice. It's like, if as deep as it can go, it's like then everything above it gets changed.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
So you stay on the surface, and that's just sort of it's a change, but it's a minimal change. But the deeper we can go into the body and the psyche and get into some of this, sort of quality of what sort of has just seemed maybe normal your whole life, right. And start to bring it something new, bring it some nourishment, bring it some new choices. It's like so exciting to see the fundamental shifts that can happen.
It really is amazing to see what starts to occur for people as they examine stuff that's going on and start to implement some changes in what it is that they're doing on a daily basis, or how it is they're thinking, or just the simple aspect of bringing awareness to a train of thought. I mean, think about how many times throughout the day you have a monologue going on in your mind about whatever, like, what am I eating today, or whatever, blah 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 blah. You've got this monologue that is occurring for you, and for many of us, we would never ever dream of speaking to another human being the way that we speak to ourselves. And
True
what
story.
a crime that is, right? So when we can turn to ourselves and have conversations with ourselves like we're speaking to someone that we're deeply in love with, because we should be deeply in love with ourselves.
Oh my God, that's so
Right?
amazing. It should be.
So much can unpack. Yes.
Right, like bringing that out in. Whew.
Yeah, right? How would you speak to somebody that you love? Probably not the way you speak to yourself.
That's like a whole nother talk.
Oh my God, we can talk about it.
I know. That's beautiful. No, it's just a beautiful invitation to just like start to pay attention to those thoughts, and would I say this to anybody else, and
right.
What would I say to somebody else, and then you sort of gotta try it on, practice saying it to yourself, even though it might be like,
this feels so weird.
Yeah, but why not?
Yeah.
What do you have to lose?
Not a thing.
Right?
Not a thing.
Yeah, like we all deserve it.
We do.
Full on, unconditional.
Absolutely. Right?
Yeah. So we gotta start wrapping up. One parting piece of advice for people on the healing path?
Oh gosh, for wherever it is that you are and whatever it is that you're finding that you need that you don't have, I would really encourage you to see what you can do on a daily basis to carve out 5 minutes for yourself, where you just are, and this could be doing anything or doing nothing, yoga, meditation, body work of any kind, like a walk in the park, sitting down by yourself in a room for a minute and lighting a candle. That's what I do. Like, make yourself a cup of tea and just give yourself a moment to just be, and to be without needs, to be like, to just be, and to let yourself be where you are, and to spend a minute asking yourself where the heck that really is. Give yourself a moment for stillness. So critical. So critical. And I think that you'll find that you learn some really amazing things about yourself.
Thanks for speaking to that. Beautiful.
My pleasure.
That was awesome. How do people find you?
You can find me on my website at elementalmaine.com, or you can book online, give me a shout, shoot me a text. I'm on Facebook.
Hive directory.
Hive directory! Don't forget to find me on the Hive directory.
Totally. Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Laura's one of the best body workers I know in Portland, Maine, and does great work. And so thank you for being on today.
It's
and
my
thank you
pleasure.
for all the space that you're holding and all the love that you're giving and all the ways you're nourishing yourself so you can give to others.
It's my honor. I am happy to do it. Thank you, guys.
All right, Hive Live. Y'all are amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in today. This is Sage Hayes, Laura Scher, body worker. Tomorrow I'll be back. I'm going to be in this workshop. I'm doing this workshop called Creating Safer Spaces for Helping Professionals. So that's happening tonight and tomorrow with my colleague Lisa Newell here in Portland, Maine. I'm going to be giving you a report on that. Maybe bring some of the participants on tomorrow. But tomorrow's interview is with Gina Forbes, who is an educator, a doula, a somatic experiencing practitioner. She works at the most radical, amazing preschool that I know. And we're going to talk about creating conditions for radical love and healing with children. And so it's a great interview to tune in, especially if you're a parent or you work with kids. And I don't know, it's just going to be rad. Gina's amazing. So, all right, you guys, love you so much. We'll see you tomorrow. It's at 6 o'clock. All right, take care. Peace out.